Welcome all to the smallest NFL slate of the season, an 8-game Sunday main slate. Kind of wild to me, Snyder. I just assumed it would be 9. Then I forgot about Thursday Night Football. You have the 2 Christmas games. You have the 3 Saturday games. You got the Sunday night and Monday night. And next thing you know, half the NFL games are just gone from the slate. So it's a very small slate. Luckily, I got you here to break it down with me. And I look at this slate of games, Snyder. It kind of sucks. At least we got the Packers and Vikings to kick us off there at the 4 o'clock games. But, oh, my goodness, there isn't really too many close spreads either. There is a lot of playoff implication on the line. But otherwise, you can see why these were kind of set aside to the 1 p.m. Sunday games on a week like this. How are you doing, man?
Yeah, I'm doing all right. It's been a good day of football. Wild game there with your Bengals coming through at the end. That was a crazy game, fun game to watch. Sweating the Iowa State game there as well. I had Iowa State, and they got through there right at the end. They scored a touchdown. So, excited to dive into this nice little 8-game slate. 8 games is kind of fun, though. I kind of like these, smaller, mid-tier, smaller type slates and stuff like that. I've had a lot of success with the 2 and 3 gamers. We've had a couple of times this year, but we got the Rams and Cardinals in a barn burner right now at 0-0. So looking forward to jumping into this with you.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind that one sticking to low scoring here. My MME on FanDuel, I was very high on Drake May. And wow, what a stupid decision that was. The Patriots just showing why. The tank was almost rolled out there too. Yeah, look, I was just so frustrated with the way the whole thing panned out. Only 11 completions for Drake May. Several times you just saw this offense fizzle out with 3 and outs. But hey, we got a good one. Hopefully tonight with the Rams and Cardinals. I know a lot of people are going to be watching this on playback, so no need to. We'll just go ahead and just get straight into the content here then in just a second. Real quick, Rob, good luck to you, man. 2, 3, 3, 3, 3 tickets tomorrow. Bring them home. Absolutely, Rob. Good luck tomorrow. Hopefully you take it down. And yes, we do have lots of injuries to look out for right now. As of today, we got Chuba Hubbard placed on IR. You also had Tony Pollard get ruled out too. So this is exactly it. Beefy 5-layer, you said Spears, Taylor, Bucky. That does seem to be the chalk of the running back spot. And yeah, so Spears gets the big boost without Tony Pollard in there. All right, Snyder, let's go ahead and get into these 8 games. We're going to be using SaberSim to break them down, and we're also going to go through the order that SaberSim has them in. And the first one, well, wouldn't you want it anything else? The Raiders and the Saints. The Raiders obviously having a very narrow target tree with Brock Bowers and Jacoby Myers. Both are going to be projecting for double-digit ownership in this one. And that's about it on the Raiders side of the ball. I mean, you can maybe make a case for a 5-1 AOC, the Raiders defense not being awful. But then when you click over to the Saints side of the ball, it's just the Saints defense that's getting any traction at all. And a big reason for that is their running back by committee that they employed last week with Jordan Mims, Jamal Williams, and of course, Kendra Miller. This is a frustrating game to start out with just because there isn't a whole lot to talk about, Snyder, unless you have any conviction on any of these running backs. Because look, the Raiders are also a very messy team at the running back position. I mean, Amir Abdullah has been a shiner at times where he's been absolutely amazing, but he's also the 3rd down running back. Outside of that, though, I'm not trying to play a Saint. You can maybe make the case for a guy like Kevin Austin, who I know you liked on recent shows and stuff. But however, we might not even need that value with all the running back value that we have popping up. You might not need to even punt at wide receiver. What are you doing with this one this week?
Yeah, I mean, this is a real doozy of a game here. I really don't have any conviction or any want to click on any of these names, honestly. The only guy I think that you could play, I mean, we've got the value, like you were saying, and I don't think a Brock Bowers is even going to get clicked on that much. I think Brock Bowers is the guy that always holds that upside to really separate himself at the tight end position there. 6,700. It's expensive, but I mean, there's been a few times this year where he's put up 20 points again last week as well. Was 1 yard short of the 100-yard bonus, catching 11 for 99 last week. So at least Bowers has that ceiling that we know of in a pretty bad position there, tight end spot, where a lot of people are going to be kind of spending down, I think, at tight end. I think Bowers is interesting for tournaments, but that's really the only spot that I would even want to consider in this game. We got probably a real slow dumpster fire game here. The total's in the mid to high 30s, so I just really don't expect much fantasy goodness coming out of this game. But I guess you never know. But I mean, maybe Jacoby Myers or something you can click in there too, but I really have no interest really wanting to like actively target this game though.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you, Snyder. And Brock Bowers being the number one guy. Jacoby Myers a close second. But again, it is a Raiders passing attack that I just don't love. Antonio Pierce, he wants to run the ball despite being one of the worst teams in the league at it. He is very insistent on running the ball with guys like Madison, Zamir White throughout the season. You also had Sincere McCormick, who actually wasn't that bad. But it's just this running back talent is just so awful, and they do try to establish it, and it's frustrating. But maybe with Aiden O'Connell, I mean, they did show some signs of life. Myers and Bowers, you can easily make the case for having 20-point upside on any given week. But yeah, Bowers is my top dog. I actually like the Raiders defense over the Saints here. I mean, they're favored, of course, but I don't get why the Saints, as of now, and again, 90 minutes before lock is the best time to build your lineups on Sabre, even as close to lock as you can get comfortably. And the Raiders defense would be, I think, very, very close to ownership of the Saints, if not the same. So we'll want those ownerships to update. Again, I hate to spend 5 minutes on the first game, but we've got no other choice. Like, well, I'm not going to talk in circles either. I mean, on the Saints side, we just saw how bad they were. They were the first team in the NFL to get shut out this season. They haven't given me a real reason to think otherwise. I know the Raiders defense is trash, but in reality, like, yeah, maybe make the case for Juwan Johnson, but I would just be talking in circles at that point with no conviction. And yeah, Olave is not back. He is not going to be playing in this one. That concussion is sidelining him. I would not even think he should come back next week. If you're not going to play the last 3 games after being activated from the 21-day window a couple weeks ago, you shouldn't come back for the last one either. Hopefully all is well with him. And then this is an interesting one because we're going to bridge right into this game. Who's watching what? Carolina Panthers and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So again, one of my favorite accounts, the Coach Speak Index. He does a great job breaking everything down from a coach's perspective, what they talk about in press conference to the media. Rachaad White's fumble is very much an issue in Tampa Bay, and it sounds like Bucky Irving will get the massive workload here for Tampa Bay. Rachaad White might still be a factor, but he was very disappointed in the fumble last time out. I do think it's Bucky week. What was it, 3 weeks ago they played the Panthers and Bucky ran wild in that second half, and he was even getting a little bit banged up in that first half as well. This game's interesting, Snyder, because the Bucs are in a must-win. Like, just no doubt about it. They blew it last week. They are now second in the division. They don't hold a tiebreaker to the Falcons. They have to win their last 2 games to really have a shot at making the playoffs. And right now, you look at it, Bucky's a great play. Mike Evans is a great play. This team, a dark horse for, 4 or 5 touchdowns in this one. I know that their team total, okay, maybe not the dark horse with their team total at 28, but I could see them putting up a 35 spot here or more. We've seen this offense absolutely nuke at times, Snyder. I think this is one of those trends, too. I would love to look at all the Millie lineups in the season and how many times Baker Mayfield and them popped up. I bet it's more than a couple times. Mike Evans in particular, without, since Godwin gone down, like, he's got no one to compete with for targets. I know last week wasn't the best result for the Mike Evans guys, but, like, look, he tears up this Carolina team on a yearly basis. I kind of expect the same thing here. Bucky Irving, my favorite play. And Slater, Payne Durham. Do we need to dip down to the value at tight end this week at 2,900? I don't think so, but he didn't look bad last week with a 5 for 29 stat line. What do you think?
Yeah, this game as a whole is one of my favorite ones to target on this slate. We've got some weather in some other games, but like on this one, we've got Tampa Bay at home as an 8-point favorite here. A huge advantage for the Tampa Bay offensive line versus the defensive line. They've got the 3rd best offensive line going against the stone worst defensive line in Carolina there. Like we saw, like you said, Bucky had 152 yards rushing and a touchdown against these guys last time they faced them. 30 spot there. I think Bucky is in another just absolute smash spot. Definitely will be a guy I'm extremely overweight on. Potentially, I could even lock him in like all 3 of my main teams or maybe even like a 20 max or something there. And another guy I like that's really been coming up, he was on that Washington team. Many people thought he was the best receiver on that team, playing with Odunze and Polk on that Washington team. Jalen McMillan's really stepped it up the last few weeks. He's found the end zone 4 different times in the last 3 weeks. He's been right there over 50 yards every game, 7 targets. Really, it's kind of ascended into that really good wide receiver 2 role with the injuries to Godwin and some other stuff going on there. And Shepard's out as well. The K. Dotton's out. So I really expect McMillan to keep ascending. I really like his price tag at 4,600. and the target share is there. I think this is a really good spot for him to kind of keep it rolling and put up, 17 to 22 DK points like he has been the last couple of weeks. So he's another strong priority for me in this game. I think Mike Evans is a strong upside play, like you were mentioning there for tournaments and such. Evans is always a good play. I haven't really messed with like building teams and roster construction yet. I've been waiting until the mornings to run Sabre once everything's more so updated and such. But I think I will have some Durham in the pool for sure. Depends on how much he hits. We'll let Sabre decide on that. But definitely, if he would give me like 8 points again for 2,900, I think that's pretty strong there. If you can get those other studs to kind of, you get like the Saquons and such to nuke and such. But really high on Bucky and McMillan in this game. Maybe even play a little bit of Tampa defense. But the last time these guys played, Bryce Young had one of those good games. I actually played a Bryce Young stack against this Tampa Bay secondary. So I think this is a game where we can see a lot of back and forth. The total's near 50. So I think Bryce Young and some of these wide receivers from Carolina can really get going here. Like Jalen Coker, since he's been back the last 2 weeks, he's averaging a 20% target share. So I expect Coker to kind of keep it rolling here as well. He had that one big game 2 weeks ago. His first game back against Dallas, he had over 100 yards and a touchdown. So the ceiling's there. He's hit 17 a game against the Broncos earlier this year too. So we know that Coker at 4,300. I think he's a really good bring back for me for a cheaper guy if you need. Thielen's there as well. He's getting close to 6K, but Thielen is still the main target, I think, for Bryce Young. He found the end zone last week as well. And Thielen's hit double-digit fantasy points in the last 4 straight games as well. So I think we could have a lot of good back and forth in this game. But I do look for Tampa Bay to kind of roll in this spot, headed by Bucky Irvin on the ground, I think.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And we also just had an update that James Conner, questionable to return with a knee injury. I mean, who could have saw that one coming? It is interesting, Snyder, when you brought it up to, like, having this Carolina offense that has clicked of late, right? And this Tampa Bay defense that is a clear pass funnel. I actually like that Coker call quite a bit. Again, this is a game that I'm kind of tempted to stack. And this is a good question here. Who's watching what? Like, you can't stack Baker and Bucky, right? It's one or the other, stacking Baker or Bucky. I would argue that on an 8-game slate, it doesn't matter. And usually on even a larger slate like this with a team total nearly 30, it's going to be fine regardless. But you look at every team on this slate. You have the Eagles with their backup with Kenny Pickett, right? The Tampa Bay Bucks are the only team implied for 28 points or more other than the Buffalo Bills. So you're more than fine jamming in a QB, running back, wide receiver with a run back here on a slate like this. A QB +2. I think that qualifies as a +2. And they don't forget, Bucky's also very capable on the passing game. So it is one of those things where, especially on a smaller slate like this, but also with one of the nutted teams in the Tampa Bay Bucks, it might even be more popular than you would rather expect because all 3 of those guys are expecting double-digit ownership as of right now. Panthers side, too, like we also have to mention Chuba being out. It's going to be a big blow to that offense. I will say this. I think I am the biggest Raheem Blackshear fan in the Run For Your Sports community. He's been a preseason hero for a while. He's very capable out of the backfield with his hands. However, I do expect it to be Mike Boone getting the majority of the carries, Raheem Blackshear getting the majority of the passing work. It's going to be a spot where I just don't think you need to attack because, look, we got Saquon on this slate. We got James Cook, A-Chain, all those guys, right? And that's not even including Spears and Bucky Irving. Like, it just – I don't really feel the need to attack this Panthers backfield where there's a lot of uncertainty. But still, it's not the worst thing in the world to look at. Yeah, I mean, anything else that you want to add, Snyder? I mean, you mentioned it. I know someone mentioned Thielen, too. I like Thielen a little bit, but also, like, when I was just tracking the game, I didn't watch the last Panthers game, but it felt like Thielen wasn't dominating the targets, right? I was expecting him to kind of, like, get a little bit more of a domination in terms of that wide receiver room. But you're exactly right. Coker could be in that same ballpark, and he's also 1,400 cheaper. And it looks like he's going to be about 4% owned compared to Thielen being 16, 17%. That's not a bad pivot at all. Anything else?
If you wanted another million maker play from this game, I think there is still some upside in like a Trey Palmer or something. It's really thin, but like for the million maker or something, he's a guy that can catch a bomb or a deep one. He's only got 1 touchdown on the year, but last year I think he had a couple of good games where he was like right near 20 DK points or something. And 3K min with Shepard out, I think it's worth maybe a dart throw. I wouldn't go crazy about it, but if you're going to throw some teams in the million maker and want to get a little crazy, I think Trey Palmer is worth a dart throw maybe.
Yeah, the key thing with him is check his social media in the morning, see if he woke up feeling pissed off. If you see that tweet, Trey Palmer's just fine for the millie. Let's go ahead and move on to a team that's impacted by injuries with their quarterback. It is the one and only Anthony Richardson, who is out for this one. So Joe Flacco will take the reins. Last time Flacco started, it was Josh Downs, who was incredibly productive in his time. 4,800 going against a New York Giants secondary that was carved up by your Ravens just a couple weeks ago, but they've also just been carved up in general. This is a tricky one for me because obviously the Giants not really looking forward to winning this one, right? Not really looking like they want to lose that number one pick that they have a good stranglehold of. Over the last couple weeks, though, they've given up 69 points. Nice. 34 to the Falcons last week. Penix looked pretty good against them as well, throwing for over 200. This just kind of goes into the back of my mind here where Downs is going to be incredibly popular tomorrow. We know how bad this Giants secondary is. Michael Pittman, also going to be a decent click. What are you doing with this wide receiver room? Because, again, with Flacco starting, these wide receivers become much better just because Flacco, he doesn't have the dual threat ability that Anthony Richardson does.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is a good spot. I mean, this Giants team has basically just given up, I think. The last 2 weeks, they've allowed 34 and 35 points. They allowed Atlanta to just basically roll over them last week, even though when they didn't even start out the greatest. And you've been able to target this team both on the ground and through the air. It's actually crazy looking at the box score I just pulled up. Average fantasy points given up to the RB position. I believe it's 9 straight games they've given up 24 plus DK points to the RB position. So that just screams out JT, even after watching JT run wild last week. I didn't have any JT last week. Wish I would have, but was not on there for the 200-yard. I think he had 2 or 3 70-yard run. I think it was 2 70-yard runs in that game. That definitely was a huge game there. But I agree with what you're saying about the wide receiver position here with Flacco. It really, really improves, I think, Josh Downs mainly as the downfield threat guy. I think he's going to be able to push the ball to Downs. I believe Downs was he had the best game of the season when he had that 25-point game was when Flacco was throwing the ball. He had 4 for 109 and a touchdown in that game. He's been just solid when he was playing with Flacco too. So 4,800 for Josh Downs. He's going to be popular, but I'll try and at least field him, I think. But I think going to JT is interesting. They're still a 7.5 point favorite on the road against New York. This team's basically given up. And there's a little bit of a chance of sprinkles in this game as well. Nothing too crazy, though. The wind should be pretty down as well. So, yeah, I'm going to mix in some JT this week, especially with the value we got. I think you could even run a JT, Bucky, Saquon team or something like that if you put in a cheap quarterback and a cheap tight end or something. Nothing for me from the Giants side, really. I mean, if I was going to play any Giant, I think I'd maybe go to Wan'Dale Robinson at 4,400. It's interesting to see if Neighbors is even really going to be out there trying to play as much or if he's going to pull the plug or what's going on there. Robinson had 12 targets last week, caught 7 of them for 62 yards. So I think Wan'Dale would be my preferred option on the Giants side.
Yeah, this Giants side is incredibly frustrating at the moment. I don't know where this production is going to come from. They had life with Daniel Jones, and now it just feels like they don't have any life at all, Snyder. It's not to say that Daniel Jones is an amazing quarterback by any means, but it definitely feels like there's been a level that has dropped since they've made that change at the quarterback position. I look at it, I mean, Tyron Tracy's not going to be owned at all. This is a Colts defense I think you can target against a little bit too. But again, what incentive do the Giants have to really win? I mean, maybe Brian Dable's coaching for his job. Maybe he needs a win here to show it. But I mean, you got the number 1 pick right now in a draft that, could have some top-heavy talent that could change your franchise. It sucks, right? This is the NFL now to where, I know it's been a thing in the past. The Bengals tanked for Joe Burrow. That's kind of obvious with the way they finished games out. I want to say that was 2017 or whatever. Or no, 2019. That was a definite tank. So I'm not going to blame the Giants here, but it definitely just kind of throws a wrench into things. Like, I just don't see anyone who can really go off of them. Neighbors just doesn't have the quarterback talent to get him the ball consistently. You might get the volume, but it just doesn't matter. But the Colts side, like, look, Josh Allen's great. Michael Pittman's fine. It just becomes like, I don't know if I want to play a 40% on Josh Downs if that's what we get to. He's going to be one of the best values. I'll definitely have it in an MME, but like, just comes down to the fact that it could be Pittman or, I just don't know. This is a game I just kind of want to think on, Snyder. If I am playing like a guy like Jonathan Taylor, like it could be the only Colts piece from that game, or maybe Jonathan Taylor with the Colts defense could be a good combo. But right now, like, I don't think I would double stack a Flacco with Downs and Pittman right now. I just think I'd rather go elsewhere. Like, look, we just talked about Bryce Young, even in that sense of I'd almost rather have a Bryce Young, Coker, Thielen stack than a Flacco, Pittman, Down stack. And it's a little bit bold with the 5 points implied less, but that's just where my mind is right now, especially against when both teams are pretty bad, to be quite honest. All right, the Battle of New York Jets and the Buffalo Bills. This one's great. Last week was the worst week we've had from Josh Allen in quite some time, Snyder. It was a little bit like just a flat game from him. I was actually going against Josh Allen in fantasy football, so I was very happy to see that. But at the same time, it was just kind of one of those things where he was always due for maybe just a slightly bad game. You're obviously a big Lamar fan. You like Lamar for the MVP, I assume, over Josh Allen. But again, this is a Jets team that we have been targeting against because this defense is not the same defense that we came into the start of the season. We thought this Jets defense would be really good to start the season. They were good, and then we were okay, and now they're just honestly fairly bad. And there's just no way around it. I mean, James Cook has been incredible. It's almost like James Cook has been defying the odds every single week. Every single week, I have the same thing to say about James Cook. I don't want to play him. He's barely getting above 50% of the snaps, 50% of the carries in Buffalo, and then he'll rip off a 50-yard run. And this is a Jets team that we've constantly hit running backs against, right? We've always bashed in the running backs against the Jets, and even the receivers have been fine. The problem with Josh Allen, though, is who do you stack him with, right? Like, even on the week they score 48, I don't think they had any representation in the Millie winner. So it's a frustrating team to kind of have for DFS. On a smaller slate, though, at 8 games, it does feel like Josh Allen, maybe not even you have to run him naked, but you don't have to overstack him at all. You could just plug Josh Allen, maybe one other weapon, and be just fine from the Bills side and get almost all their touchdowns, right?
Yeah, I agree. And I think Josh Allen's going to need a pretty good game here. The MVP race looked to be just out of reach there for a while. The odds have kind of came back a little bit. So I think Josh Allen's going to be looking to put up a pretty good game here. There is a little bit of weather in this game. I think there's right around a 65% chance of rain. And then the winds are going to pick up as well, like 15 to 20 mile an hour sustained winds. Potentially in the second half of this game, I've seen gusts up to like 30, 35 miles an hour in this game. So it's just something to kind of note or monitor a little bit leading up to the game tomorrow. But I think the Bills side, I think the Bills are just going to roll here. The Jets have looked, they're like playing backyard football at times. It seems like Rodgers is out there just throwing it to Devonta. They had that really big second half a couple weeks ago in the DK Live final. But I think the Bills are just going to roll over them here. They kind of got a little bit of a shock last week with the Patriots kind of sneaking up on them and gave them way more of a test than they thought that they were going to have there. 10-point favorite here at home. So I think Josh Allen, with the value we have, I don't think he's going to be that highly owned. And I think he's like a really good tournament play. We know the upside he has. There's been many games this year he's put up 35 points, especially here lately. He had the 44-54 stretch there before dudding last week for only 12. But I look for Allen to bounce back pretty big here against a pretty porous Jets defense, I think, here. I think Khalil Shakir is interesting for tournaments at 5,600. I think he's the one guy I would look to mainly pair up with him. 6 targets last week. He's been at 6 or more targets every game except for week 1. So, Shakir is going to get the volume as long as he's out there. So I like Shakir to pair up with Allen if I was going to pair him up with anyone. And then you look at Kincaid's going to be back as well, 4,300. I'm not sure I'll play him. Maybe Sabre will mix him up in a couple stacks depending how that all shakes out, but not a guy I'm going to put on like any of my main like 5 teams or anything like that. But I think Josh Allen will make one of my main teams because I look for a Buffalo to kind of roll over here. And I've actually been playing a little bit of James Cook lately. With the projection I've had, Sabres kind of bumped him into my 20 max a little bit more than I was expecting. And a couple of back-to-back really strong games, 100-yard bonuses in back-to-back games, 3 touchdowns. He scored a touchdown in all but 2 of his last 11 games. So James Cook sneakily has been getting there almost all year, at least like 15 fantasy points as of late. In 5 of his last 6 games, he's been 15-plus DK points, which is kind of sneaky there. 7,200. Nobody will probably be on him. So I think he's an interesting tournament play as a big home favorite with some potential weather in store.
Yeah, this is definitely one of those things too where I do want to get a little bit of exposure to Josh Allen just because he can break this slate with 30 DK points, right? Like that's obvious what he's been able to do this season. And there's not a whole ton of quarterbacks that can really match that on this slate. Not even like you saw Burrow, what he did today. Hell, you saw Herbert, what he did today too. He did great. It just kind of makes sense that if you can get a 10-point gap at the quarterback position, that you should do it. And we do have plenty of value for it. And look, I like playing Josh Allen, and you know who's watching what, like Devontae Adams. I like that. I mean, we've seen this Bills defense just give up 42 to the Lions. We saw them last week. You saw how bad this Patriots offense looked today. Well, they didn't look half bad against the Bills last time out. So, like, I don't mind that. I don't mind doing a mini stack from this game. I'm never going to do a Josh Allen +2 because, look, they spread the ball out to 10, 11 different days in some games. Like, I'm not playing Josh Allen, Kincaid, Shakir stacks. Even though it's like, you know, one of those things where, like, just moving forward and stuff, I know it's just one of those things where now they added Cooper into the mix over recent weeks. We don't know anything really about what his role really is on a week-to-week basis. Some games he'll get 14 targets. The next one he'll get 0 targets. Like, it's frustrating with this offense. And then on the Jets side of the ball, though, you do have, like, kind of one thing. You know who's going to get the rock. Devontae Adams is going to get the rock. Garrett Wilson's going to get the rock. Running back-wise, though, this one's Crew. You mentioned this a little bit earlier. Any interest in Breece Hall? Short answer, no. I mean, look, I just don't know what's up with it. You have Braylon Allen, who's heavily into the mix. You got Isaiah Davis, who's just as much in the mix. Like, Breece Hall almost feels like he's just kind of a secondary piece in this Jets offense right now. Like, I get it if you're talking about the Bills defense being a little bit leaky, conceding maybe, you know, over 21, 24 points in this one, which is certainly possible. But we have so many good running backs on this slate that someone's got to get on the chopping block, and Breece Hall is going to be one of those guys here. All right, let's see. We have this Sauce Gardner. I didn't realize Sauce Gardner being questionable for this one. That'll be a good one to track just because that secondary has already been bad. Sauce being out would make it so much worse. All right, Cowboys, Eagles. Oh, boy. Kenny Pickett's team. He did get the ball to A.J. Brown at a decent clip in the first half last time out. That's one thing to kind of look forward to. However, this is an Eagles team that's definitely going to look a little bit different than recent weeks. With no Jalen Hurts, they're going to have to rely maybe on our guy, Saquon Barkley, a little bit more, which, by the way, Snyder, great call last week. Saquon looked amazing and ended up crushing on the slate. This is an interesting game because you know the volume for each side, right? And the big news here, CeeDee Lamb out. So you know Rico Dowdle's going to get the ball. You know Saquon Barkley's going to get the ball, the running back position. The wide receiver, A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, easy for Philly. But I really want you to touch on this Cowboys wide receiver room, right? No CeeDee Lamb. Where do these targets go? And we can even talk about Jake Ferguson possibly being a guy here, right? At 3,700, that's a great click, right? But everyone's going to be making that click at 46%, right? He's almost projected for 50% on this slate. We'll see how that shakes out closer to lock. But he is going to be the best click on the Cowboys. Any of these wide receivers interest you, though? Could Turpin, who's been a dark horse on showdowns in recent times at 3,400, could he be a key, or is it Brandon Cooks, Jalen Tolbert, and them?
Yeah, I think it's going to be Brandon Cooks kind of trying to step up into that role. But I mean, I really question how Dallas is even going to be able to move the ball on this defense. I really think this Philadelphia defense is really good. They've got the second best defensive line against mid to average, I think, on the bottom half of offensive lines in the Dallas there. So I think Philadelphia is really going to create a lot of problems for Dallas. Really, I really struggle to see how they're going to move the ball that much. We've got a total in the mid-30s here. Philadelphia is favored by 7. So Dallas's implied team total isn't that high. And I would almost bet the under on that, I think, because I just am trying to find ways that Dallas is going to move the ball, and I just don't really see it. I mean, Philly's coming off of that down game as well. So I look for Philly to kind of rebound big here against a division rival, kind of maybe even potentially shut out the Cowboys. Cooper Rush is just not going to get it done for me on the road in Philly, I don't think. So I'm going to be off the Cowboys side, but I think Brandon Cooks would be the guy. If I was going to like run a stack or something, run it back, I think Cooks would be the guy. Turpin's got the upside, 3,400. He's got some big play potential too, as well. If you want to go there, he's the return man as well, so he's got the big speed. Had a game against Houston Texans earlier this year when he had 86 yards and a touchdown, so that's a little bit of big play threat if you want to go there. Ferguson will probably be too highly owned for me, and I'll probably just try and fade that chalk and get different elsewhere. So I'll probably be off of Ferguson if he's going to be potentially upwards of that high of an ownership. Let me see here on the Philly side. I still kind of like Devonta on the Philly side. I think Devonta is still that upside GPP play, 5,800. I really like him to kind of be one of the lower-owned guys to maybe potentially break the slate. Kind of like we saw Higgins today. He was one of the lower-owned guys compared to Chase. He kind of broke the slate there. I see Devonta's probably going to be under 10%. Has that big play upside. A.J. Brown's a good click as well. He just costs $3K or $2K more. And then you got Eric Dickerson kind of poking the bear, saying he doesn't think Saquon's going to break the record. And Saquon is damn close. I mean, if Saquon breaks off a couple ones, he could be breaking that record in this game potentially. But I think he will break it next week. I expect Saquon to have 150 yards and a touchdown in this game. So Saquon is a really tough fade. I think he puts up a 30 spot again this week. So I think Saquon is a really tough fade. I'll be playing Saquon. I'll be playing that chalk. I think I'm going to get off of the Ferguson chalk. But I like Saquon and Devonta are my two favorite plays in this game.
Yeah, I do agree with that. Here's some notes on the Cowboys wide receiver room last week. CeeDee Lamb ran 25 routes, right? That's fine. Brandon Cooks ran 32. It was Ferguson who ran 22, which was a little bit lower than you'd usually expect. Still turned into 9 targets for 40 yards. But Turpin was actually third in wide receiver routes, ran with 15. Then it was Tolbert. Then it was Flournoy at 13 and 12, respectively. I think I might be looking at Turpin props just because it only takes one for a guy like him to really just crush. He's always a threat for a long ball. You saw it against the Texans on that showdown slate. I think that was like Monday night or Sunday Night Football, I think it was. So it's one of those things, too, where it's like, I don't want to get carried away with Cowboys because I think you're exactly right. The Eagles defense is scary. I called them the best defense in the league last week, and then they go ahead and just lose to the Commanders. Not great. But genuinely, this is on the road at the link. I don't want to get too carried away with the Cowboys. It would probably be a max of one. I wouldn't want Ferguson and Turpin together, really. I want to pick one or the other if I have to go with a value. And this is a good pivot would be a guy like Kraft later on. I'm going to go ahead and just get to this one here because good, fantasy football championship week, Snyder. Pick 2, Devontae Smith, Dowdle, B-Rob, McMillan, Jonnu, and Waddle. This is interesting. I think my initial gut reaction would be Dowdle would be my 1-1 out of there. And then it becomes a little bit blurry. Would my guy be Brian Robinson or would it be Devontae Smith? I think it would be Smith. And that's no disrespect to Jonnu. Waddle, I throw away there. McMillan, he's good. I don't really want him in that group, right? Like, I think it would be Smith and Dowdle for me. What do you think?
Yeah, I would go Smith for sure. And then I'm kind of struggling with this Dowdle. I don't know if they're going to kind of have to be forced to kind of abandon the run. I could see Dowdle putting up like 8 points again or something, but he's been strong before that when they had good game flows. But could be potentially a bad game flow here, something similar to that Tampa game last week. I might even go Robinson or McMillan. I don't know.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting one because you're exactly right. Dowdle doesn't get the best matchup possible. And Jonnu was extremely good with Huntley. I think he had 5 catches for like 80 yards or 9 catches for another 80 yards or whatever in his 2 games. Just one of those things too where, God, it is tough to adjust to Jonnu being well worth the price. And we're going to get to that game here in just a couple ones here. And this is a real quick thing because I forgot to mention it for the Bills. They win this week. They don't have anything to play for next week at all. They'll probably rest guys in week 18. Same thing kind of goes for the Eagles in a sense. If they win this game, then if Minnesota and Detroit both win, then they have 0 shot at getting to the 1 seed. So that would be an interesting one to kind of track. They might have something to play for in week 18. So again, we're kind of getting into that range where some of these teams might not have anything to play for, but as of right now, both those teams, the Bills and Eagles, do have something to play for in week 17 at the moment. All right, biggest news on the slate so far, Tony Pollard out. Tyjae Spears has absolutely nuked the last 2 weeks. He was irrelevant for best ball all season. Then he comes in on the 2 playoff weeks, and now he's the guy to have. And Snyder, when I looked at this game, right, the entire thing, I looked at this game when I knew I was going to win my fantasy football matchup to lose to my aunt in the championship, because that's what I'm currently doing. I'm going to lose to my aunt. She picked Henry and Saquon to start the year. She picked up Garendo and stuff. She put on a masterclass, right? Her first 2 guys in her lineup were McConkey and Henry this week. So I'm screwed, right? My fantasy football season's over, but I'm sitting there. I'm like, look at my chops. I got Tyjae Spears on the bench. He's my silver bullet, and then I put him in. And now look, this Jaguars defense, one of the worst. It might be the worst defense in the league. So when you have an immovable object versus an unstoppable force, what result are we going to get in this one? I actually really love the Titans offense. that sounds incredibly gross, Snyder. But give me Ridley, give me Spears. Give me Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. I mean, we're on Christmas week still. I think that you can easily double stack the Titans here, and I want to do it because, look, there's times at the end of the season where games don't matter and teams just take the gloves off and just have fun. And I'm not saying have fun in the literal sense, but like offenses do score points. This happens all the time, especially I love my soccer, right? When there's a game where it's just at the end of the season and these 2 teams don't care, all of a sudden you see a game that's like 2-2, 3-3. I could see 4 touchdowns from the Titans here. That's my bold take. 4 touchdowns from the Tennessee Titans. And I know Spears and Ridley are popular, but I do want to get overweight on the double stacks here. And look, Brian Thomas Jr., lighten it up. Absolutely lighten it up as well. You can use him as a run back. I don't know if I'd want to fiddle with the Bigsby ETN combo at all, but Brenton Strange, I'm not going to completely go away from him. 1 week after being extremely chalk, he's going to be less than 3% owned. What changed? Nothing changed. The game log changed. Give me Strange. Give me Brian Thomas. Give me Spears. Give me Ridley. Give me Rudolph. That's my hot take. I love this game despite the low total. Snyder, what do you think?
Yeah, I think I really like this game, but I think we need to kind of pay attention to the weather just a little bit in this game. This is one of those games that potentially could have some heavy rain in this game, depending on how the weather kind of moves through. There could be some windy gusts in this game, potentially right around 30-mile-per-hour gusts as well. So I think this game has a lot of upside. I just kind of want to pay attention to the weather a little bit. I think Spears will be the highest owned guy on the slate easily, probably close to like 50%. Just a great spot for him, too, against this Jags defense who can't stop anything. And you look at people are going to be looking at like the box scores and such and see Spears is off back-to-back 20-point games. Really good receiving role in this game. Has proved to be well on the ground as well. So I think Spears is just an absolute smash play regardless of the weather. So I think he is a great play. And then I think like the passing attack for Tennessee could even go off there. Ridley, 5,500. I think he'll see some ownership. Potentially, 15, potentially up to 20% ownership maybe on Ridley. But he's shown the upside. And then our guy, Brian Thomas, we've been on Brian Thomas pretty much the whole year. Just keeps nuking the last couple of weeks, 30 points last week, 35 the week before. So Thomas, I mean, it's tough to fade a guy that's getting 12 targets a game. I mean, 10, 12, 13, 14 targets a game, just force-fed. 3 touchdowns in the last 2 games, over the 100-yard bonus in back-to-back games as well. So, I think Brian Thomas is a smash play on this slate as well. He'll see the ownership as well, but I mean, it's hard to fade a guy under 7K that's putting up the numbers he's putting up. And you just pair him with Ridley, just eat the chalk there and try to get different elsewhere, I think. So I think Spears is just an absolute smash in this game. Another guy from Tennessee I kind of like is Chig. I've been playing a little bit of Chig as of late. He's still under 4K, 3,600. So I think we can go back to Chig again this week. I played him a decent amount last week. Almost got the 20 points there. I mean, he overdid my expectations. He was optimal,
I think, right? He was in the optimal lineup that scored the maximum amount of points. Chig Okonkwo was optimal. I completely forgot about him.
Yeah, he had 9 for 81 on 11 targets. I played him just because he had 10 targets the week before, so I doubled down on that, hoping that he could get like 13 points again, and he goes for 19. So I think Chig under 4K still is a really good spot here. He'll see a little bit of ownership. I don't think not too much, but probably around 15% or something. But yeah, I think there's a lot of upside in this game, even with a low total. I think there's a lot of fantasy points to be had in this game.
Yeah, Snyder, what I'm looking at here is Chig Okonkwo's snap rate, right? His routes ran last week. I think we're the highest of the season, which is really good to see, right? Like, this is one of those things where 30 routes ran, 33 was the most in the Titans that game. That is the most on the season for Chig Okonkwo. And slowly, over the last 4 weeks, he's had 21 or more routes in each game, right? To start the season, him and Josh Wiley were splitting, right? And I know that we're well removed from the start of the season, but even as soon as week 10, in a 27-17 loss to the Chargers, he had 15 routes. Week 11, 19 routes in a 23-13 loss. So the fact that he's won this tight end room, right? And now he's still the main tight end, going into this week, I shouldn't have dismissed it. I mean, that's a great play. And someone who is cheap enough where, look, I like Strange a lot. Strange is 400 more than Chig Okonkwo, who's 3,600 here. I like the tight ends in this one. I'll say it. And I think they're both good pivots off a very chalky Jake Ferguson. Look, Ferguson's a good play. I don't think I'm doing double tight end this week either. But like Chig Okonkwo and Brenton Strange outscoring him would not shock me at all. And look, this is always a question that you get, right? This is always a question that you see every time there's bad weather in play. Well, what are we going to do? Like, what's the move here, right? The total right now is 39, right? If that total at 12:30 tomorrow is 36, lighten up on the game. If that total goes up to 40, 41, because it's going to move with the weather. I don't think it stays put at 39, right? I think the weather is going to tilt it one way or another. If it goes up 40, 41, gather some more pieces. That's always my thing. Let Vegas make the decisions for you. Let the sportsbook movement kind of determine, okay, cool, it's going up. The weather must not be that bad because they're going to be better meteorologists than you and I 15 hours ahead of game time right now. So obviously pay attention to the totals on the sportbook. And let's go ahead and move over to an electric game, a battle of the backup quarterbacks. Tyler Huntley going against Dorian Thompson-Robinson. I was very high on Dorian Thompson-Robinson last week, and I regret that. That's all that can be put to it. Devon Achane, he is going to be the highest owned from this one here. Actually, there's only 3 guys projected for double-digit ownership. Achane, the Browns defense being super cheap at 2,400, going against the backup quarterback in Tyler Huntley, and Jerome Ford, who looked really good against the Bengals last week as well. And then the Dolphins defense not too far behind. What are you doing with this one here, Snyder?
Yeah, we've got another low total here. Tyler Huntley. I actually would kind of maybe prefer Huntley if it was going to be cold to Tua. Tua doesn't usually play as well in the cold, but it actually looks like it's going to be decently warm here in Cleveland. Potential for a little bit of a rain and wind, it looks like, in Cleveland, but the temperatures are going to be in the mid-50s, so a lot warmer than I thought it was going to be there. But I think Tyler Huntley, if you need the salary at 4K, it's not terrible, but I don't know if he's a guy that I'm going to actively target. I think I like some other guys better, most notably in this next game, a quarterback in the next game. But 4K for Huntley, I could definitely see him getting 17 points or something like that and potentially paying off his price. But we could see what happened with Penix last week. The Falcons rolled last week, and Penix at 4K only got like 9 points or something. So that's definitely fully on the table. I don't really see myself doing too much with this game, though. Maybe I play a chain. I've been playing some chain in tournaments pretty much every week this year just for the upside that he holds. And last week it paid off decently, 34 points. His best game of the year. I think he's definitely a click you should make. in your MME at 7,700 with the value we got. So he'll be in my MME. I don't think you'll see much ownership, though, since his price tag is really elevated up there. And some of the other studs are going to get more ownership. Yeah, I'm not seeing a chain too much, right around 15% or so. Nothing for me really on the Browns side of the ball. The Dolphins need to win this game. Jerry Jeudy, maybe. I just don't trust the Browns at all. They're touchdown home dogs, low total. So I think I'll probably be off this. I could maybe play some Cleveland defense. So at 2,400, they still got Myles Garrett. I mean, they still got a really good defense that can make some big plays and cause some turnovers for Huntley, who Huntley hasn't looked like the old Huntley that he was in Baltimore when he was filling in for Lamar. He definitely does not look that comfortable since he left Baltimore. So I could easily play some Cleveland defense here with the cheap price of 2,400.
Yeah, I'm looking at the Cleveland defense as well. A-Chain was underwhelming with Tyler Huntley, but I don't think it was his fault. Don't forget, this is a Dolphins team that this is a must-win for, right? Like, A-Chain's going to get the rock a lot. I just have to assume that, right? They'll get, and all these passes from Tua aren't like they're complicated or anything like that. They're just kind of dishes out to the flat. They're nothing. I just don't think Tua missing out is as big of a deal as it looked to begin the season, right? When Tua got the concussion and stuff. But I do think that A-Chain's going to be just fine in this one. Jerome Ford, I do like a lot. My problem is, Snyder, we've been through all these games, and only one tight end has really stuck out to me. And that was, of course, like, I guess Bowers stuck out too, but like Jake Ferguson, right? Like the ownership wise. I look at Jonnu Smith at 5,700. I'm like, man, like, how is he projected for under 1% right now? Like, it'll probably be higher, closer to lock too. But like, I don't mind going that route. But again, this is a very gross game. Don't get me wrong. I'm not going to be doing a double stack from Huntley. I'm not going to be doing that with the Browns either. Dorian Thompson-Robinson barely got the ball out of his hand last game as well. It just becomes a game where, look, it's fine for one-offs. You know, Jerome Ford, hell, play him with the Browns defense, that's fine. A-Chain, play him with the Dolphins defense, that's fine, right? Like, I don't want to get too carried away. I'm not going to be playing like Smith, Ford, and A-Chain in the same lineup. I'll probably be one of those guys at most. Because, again, it's a gross game, gross weather, backup quarterbacks, extremely low total. It's not the most fun here. Boho Jenkins, I was just about to get to that, right? We got the last game here to talk about. Tucker Kraft, maybe being the tight end who can save my dreams. He is projected for not as much ownership as I would have thought. Oh, my goodness, 5%. That is shocking to me. I thought it would be higher. I thought it would be kind of in the ballpark of like 13, 14% above Chig Okonkwo at the very least. So it kind of shocks me to see it that low. TJ Hawkinson projected for 10% as well. That's just the tight ends, right? So let me just go ahead and move on from the tight ends here. This is a very, very important game for the Vikings. They have a legitimate shot at the 1 seed. Like, there's just no question about it. They win this game against the Packers at home. They will be playing the Lions for the 1 seed next week. I don't exactly know how this game is going to play out, Snyder, because look, both these teams have been red hot. And the Packers, honestly, they have probably been one of the best teams in the NFL over the last 2 months even. And again, the NFC is very top-heavy, right? I think you got 4 legitimate teams. You know, you got the Lions, Packers, Vikings all in the same division, and then you have the Eagles. Outside of that, everyone else is playing, you know, just for fun, it seems. So this game being incredibly important, a divisional matchup, very chalky in DFS-wise too. You have, I want to say, 6, 7, almost 8 guys projected for double-digit ownership as well, with Dontavian Wicks projecting for the highest ownership with the status of Christian Watson up in the air. It doesn't look like Christian Watson's going to be able to give it a go. We'll have to check that one a little closer to lock, but 3,900, good value there. Then you obviously have Justin Jefferson, Aaron Jones, Darnold, Jacobs, Love, Addison, Hawkinson, and Dobbs, all projecting for near double-digit ownership or more. What are you doing with this banger of a game, Snyder?
Yeah, I think this is going to be an absolute shootout, potentially really good game here. Looking at Circa, the money taken at Circa, the biggest book in Vegas, it's really 50-50 split right now when you look at the bets on this game. So, I mean, they're seeing definitely some great two-way action. I think this game is going to live up to the hype too. In the Dome in Minnesota, I really think this game's just going to kind of shoot. So it's just going to come down to finding the right ways to attack this game. And I like Darnold the best. I like Darnold and Jefferson to kind of target this game. And then I like the Wicks call there at 3,900. Helps you afford more. So Jefferson helps you roster him there. Last week, Wicks had 7 targets. I played him on the showdown. Helped me win. I won the primetime slate, the $33 primetime slate. Thanks to Wicks catching that touchdown. He didn't do much, but he had 3 catches for 13 yards and a touchdown. So I think Wicks is one of those guys that's going to benefit. Jaden Reed is a guy I'll be looking at too. 5,900. Usually plays like the more of the slot role there. I think he is definitely a guy. He's been over double-digit fantasy points in the last 3 games that he's played fully. So I think Jaden Reed is another guy I'll be looking to mix in those stacks. Romeo Doubs has a fair price. He's a lot cheaper on FanDuel, I think, but 5,100 on DraftKings is fine. He's got the upside as well. He scored 2 touchdowns a couple weeks ago, so I think I'm just going to look to mix and match these wide receivers from Green Bay, but I lean to Wicks in the salary savings there if I'm going to stack up Jefferson. I think you can run the double with Darnold, run Addison and Jefferson. We've seen Addison have the big plays. He's kind of taken that step upward that I thought he would this year. I mean, he was a stud out of college and is finally kind of taken that leap. A couple weeks ago, he had the 3-touchdown game there where he just absolutely broke the slate. So I think I actually leaned to Minnesota winning this game too. They've been kind of counted out this whole year. Nobody's really buying into them. I think they're actually like really good. Like JBC was saying, I mean, you pay the wide receivers, you just bring in a quarterback, and your team can still like run wild there. So I liked Darnold at 6,400. I lean Darnold quite a bit more than Love. Just really haven't been too
it's our first disagreement. It's our first disagreement. I say that because
Love.
How many times have we just jammed against Minnesota's pass defense, right? And they have been just hammering Jacobs down the entire offense, right? It just feels like Josh Jacobs is in line for 20, 25 touches in games that are close, right? They might not have the same luxury this game, right? Like that's my thinking is Jaden Reed has been inconsistent as can be, but you'll notice then that when I was talking about the slate here on Saber, right? Jaden Reed is projected for under 10%. That's pretty cool. All right. Like you can do a double stack with Jordan Love and not be overly chalky, right? Jordan Love's projected for about 15% right now, but you do Love, Reed, Dobbs, and you're not getting too high up there. Throwing Kraft in there as well, like Kraft, Reed, Love, and you got a decent game stack. You can run it back with any Minnesota wide receiver or Minnesota running back that you want. Aaron Jones, obviously, being a revenge game as well. This is a very interesting spot. Like Snyder, like you said, Dome. Good total. Action on both sides. Like, I don't really know what's going to happen. Like, I do know that the Vikings defense has been really good at stopping the run and pretty weak against the pass. So that's my reasoning on Love. But go ahead and go with what you were saying.
No, yeah, I agree. I just haven't really seen the upside of Love from a fantasy standpoint. He's made some good plays at times when he's needed to. Just hasn't had that big game where I don't think he's at – in the last 10 weeks, he's hit 20 points once, I think. But I guess Josh Jacobs has been there. He's just been the workhorse. There's been a couple of teams that had success against the Vikings running-wise, good running backs. So I think Josh Jacobs fits that mold. I'm going to still play Josh Jacobs just because I've been playing him every week, and he gets 20 DK points every week, so I just keep clicking his name. The price tag's definitely up there. But there's been a couple of teams like the Falcons they had 32 points RB position against the Vikings. The Seahawks had 21 DK points against them last week. The Lions had a good game against them. The Rams had a good game against them. So the really good running backs have had pretty good success against the Vikings, but they have shut out the really bad running backs. They've stoned them. But I see some two-way action here, so I'm going to try and fit Jacobs in there with Jefferson, see how that all pans out. I may have to spend down at quarterback and go to a Huntley or something if I want to jam in Jacobs, Barkley, Jefferson or something like that and just do something crazy there and just pray that Huntley can get 15 points. But I'll have some type of build like that on one of my main 3 to 5 teams. But I expect a really good back and forth game here. I think it goes over. I think it's like a last possession game too, so we'll be sweating this game all the way down. As it's like it should go fast. take longer. It's 4:25 start versus the 4:05 start, so it'll definitely be the late hammer with a lot of action in play here in this last game. So I love it.
Yeah, it was funny because like the first thing I said when we got on the show is like, how many late games are there? It's only 2, and this is one of them. So like you see, not a whole lot of PMR left. This game will be looming largely. Snyder, one thing that I wanted to do too was just check, for our plays of the day, right? Like, look, I've already said my piece in this game. You already said yours, so we'll go ahead and just get into our plays of the day here for tomorrow's Millie Maker. But real quick, this is just one last Jaden Reed advertisement because I'm going to go first, Snyder, because I'm already going to go ahead and spoil it. But like, Jaden Reed, my play of the day, Vikings, 4th worst team against the slot. They give up over 90 yards per game from the slot alone. That's Jaden Reed's specialty. I expect them to run a lot from there. Under 10% owned right now, currently at projected. No Watson in the mix. Again, I like this Packers offense a lot. I like Jordan Love a lot. Jaden Reed being a low-owned piece in that cog is just going to be excellent for me. We know the upside, right? And we know the floor. We saw it against the Lions, who are the worst against the slot. We know Jaden Reed's floor is bad, but I play for the upside. Reed is my guy this week. Play of the day. Snyder, who's yours?
I'm going to go kind of off the board here. I think this guy's going to be under 5% owned in a really good script at home as a big favorite. I'm going to go back to James Cook as my play of the day. Under 5% owned, 10-point favorite. I think he hits the 100-yard bonus for the 4th or 5th game, and finds the end zone once again and puts up 25-plus points at minimal ownership. Could even lead the slate potentially. So I'm going to go James Cook, 7,200 as my play of the day. Should be under 5%, I assume.
I would assume so too. And again, like I keep saying, James Cook every single week, he keeps getting into the box. You mentioned earlier in the show, 10 of the last 11 weeks he scored a touchdown. Wouldn't shock me if he keeps that streak going. James Cook and Jaden Reed are 2 plays of the day. Thank you all for watching as well. Good luck tomorrow in the 8-game NFL slate. Also, good luck if you have the action on the Cardinals and Rams. It's an absolute barn burner, 10-0 at halftime. And we also have an entire week ahead of us. One last show of the season will be next week, next Saturday. We'll probably have to come up with a different style of it. We won't go game by game since it's 15 games. We'll probably do a position-by-position list for that one. But for Snyder and I, have a great rest of y'all's day, and Happy New Year as well. Last show of 2024 for the Millie Roundtable. Bye-bye.